Are you sick of not performing well and you know nutrition is to blame? Do you want to get fitter, stronger, and faster so you can dominate in your sport? I am so excited to interview today's guest, Amanda Morse. She's a former D1 collegiate soccer athlete turned personal trainer. In today's episode, Amanda is going to share her struggles with fueling her body and how she overcame the struggle with the help of sports nutrition counseling as a former client of mine. Amanda overcame all the struggles many collegiate female athletes face and is going to tell us all about it in today's guest episode. Listen in as she shares what was most helpful for her, how having a support system is crucial, and what changes she's made. Plus, Amanda's going to tell us what life is like now as a personal trainer and how she still implements the changes she learned years ago. You will not want to miss today's episode. I'm also going to read to you what Amanda's testimonial says. Amanda says, I came to Elite Nutrition and Performance in January of my senior year in high school, knowing that I had approximately 6 months to properly prepare for my body for Division I soccer at UNC Asheville. While running my workout packet every morning and lifting 4 days a week in the afternoon, my body needed the right amount of fueling post and pre-workout to lose excess fat and transform it into muscle. Luckily, Kristen knew exactly what my body required in order to gain muscle in a healthy and efficient way. After only 2 weeks of working with Elite Nutrition and Performance, I could immediately see and feel a difference in not only my body, but my performance on the field and in the gym. Throughout my journey working with Kristen, I became more energized during workouts and less stressed about my transition to UNC Asheville. Even after regularly scheduled visits with Kristen, I kept in contact with Kristen through email while in college to guide me on how much to eat and what to eat with my heightened workouts during preseason. Overall, my experience with Elite Nutrition Performance has instilled a proper eating routine into my daily life that will continuously and positively influence my performance as well as a healthy lifestyle. Do you wish you could look like you train as much as you do? Are you sick of scouring the internet for sports nutrition tips only to find information tailored to men? Do you wish there was a simple solution to fueling your body for your activity level? Are you ready to find freedom with food? It is possible to have balance between fueling your body for your sport and for enjoyment, and it's not as complicated as you may think. Can we say hello, food freedom? There's a way to have it all and eat your cake too, and I'm going to show you how. Hey, I'm Kristen, a former multi-sport athlete, a sports dietitian, personal trainer, and Jesus lover. In this podcast, you will find practical, sustainable fueling tips for female athletes that will set you free from diet culture, an ever-changing set of nutrition rules, under-fueling, and underperforming. You'll learn how to put together a fueling plan that works for you, that doesn't require all the rules, tracking every morsel of food you consume, letting food consume your every thought, with Jesus at the center of it all. If you're ready to find a sustainable nutrition plan that works for you with your active lifestyle and is tailored to your unique physiology, break free from diet culture, and finally feel comfortable in your own skin, this podcast is for you. Whip up that smoothie, lace up your shoes, and let's jump in. Okay, today I have with me Amanda Morse, who is a former client of mine, and she's now a personal trainer. She is going to talk to us about her past eating struggles as a collegiate athlete, and now she is a personal trainer, and she's getting married soon, and she's just going to talk about her struggles, surrounding that as well. So, Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So
Of
can
course.
you give us a little bit of, a background about you and what led you to seek out sports nutrition advice?
Yeah, so I was probably a junior or senior in high school, and my dad actually noticed something. So I don't know if he noticed my eating habits or a change in my ability to play soccer. But when my parents got divorced, my mom was always like school and he was always soccer. So anything soccer related or like ability with soccer, he was also always in charge of, and he was the one who noticed that I maybe wasn't eating enough or that I'd gotten like really, really tiny. I wasn't as fast as I used to be, wasn't as strong as I used to be. So he sought out, because you were in Colombia at the time.
Right.
So he found you, I guess, online, and then like gently approached the issue with me, which was very nice. And looking back, I don't think I was ever like mad at him. I think I kind of wanted someone to notice because I didn't feel completely right. Like I knew what I was doing wasn't completely right in my brain. So, and I don't think I was ever doing it for attention, but it was like nice to know that someone noticed in a like twisted sense. So he found you, and then I thought like we kind of connected straight away. I liked the way you approach things, and I knew I needed to be eating more and like fueling my body more. And I think what all of us wanted, my dad, you, and me, was for me to be able to play soccer at my strongest level.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, what would you say were some of your biggest challenges that you faced before we started working together?
I got into my head that if I was smaller, I would be faster, I think.
Okay.
And my quickness was always a weakness in my soccer ability. So I was recruited for my strength. I was recruited because I was very physical, I was very aggressive. I just had that I love that part about the sport, physical contact. And so, in order for me to work on my weaknesses, I thought I needed to be smaller, and therefore that would make me faster. So, I think that's where it originally stemmed from. And then the eating less kind of followed after that.
Yeah. And I hear that so many times. Oh, I have to be smaller. I mean, and it could be from younger girls or older. It does
Yeah.
not matter. Everybody thinks the same thing, that they have to be smaller, and that is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, I know that your dad is the one that kind of found me, introduced this topic to you, but what specific goals did you have when you started working together? And then were there any misconceptions aside from, needing to be smaller, that you had about sports nutrition?
Yeah. I don't think I had any misconceptions. Like, I was self aware, and
Hmm.
I always have been very self-aware. Like, you weren't, in my eyes, you weren't gonna tell me anything that I already didn't know. It was that my brain needed to be rewired in the sense that I needed to listen to what I already knew was true. So I think for me, it was more of like a mental block than it ever was. I mean, it was physical, but I think it was more mental than it was physical because I've never been like a larger person. I've always been fit. I've always been into sports. I've always been healthy. Um, but I don't think I had any misconceptions. The biggest thing we worked on, I think, was grocery shopping for when I went into college, and where, someone I didn't have, like my dad, to say, like, hey, Amanda, like, you're going down the wrong path. Cause then in, a few short months, he was going to send me off, and then I would just be under the care of myself or my coach, my teammates, etc. And then hydration was a huge thing with soccer, or really any endurance sport in general. So that's one thing you and I worked on a lot. Was hydration, either before, after, even like during the week when I maybe an off day where I didn't have practice. So um, I kind of got off track, but I hope that
Yeah,
answers.
no, yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, I think a lot of people, a lot of girls, let's just say, that are in your, or, are in your shoes back
Yes.
then, are probably a little bit afraid of, what is this going to look like? Are working with a sports nutritionist, are they just going to make me eat a ton of food? Or, so
Right.
can you give us a little bit of insight as to what the initial consultation looked like? And was it scary? Was it not? What happened, if you can remember back that far?
Yeah, I'm like, that was 10 years ago, if you can believe it.
Yes.
I'm 27 today, and I think I met you when I was 17, so a decade ago. But I think my dad was in the room whenever we had our initial conversation, and then I don't think it was until our second or third meeting that you and I talked by ourselves, because I think he was self-aware enough that he wanted like me to be comfortable with you, but
Right.
also he knew he might not need to be in the room for some things. um, he might not have wanted to hear how I was feeling, and also he wanted to give me my privacy to like talk to you.
Right.
Um, but in our initial consultation or consult, it was the three of us in the room, and I was kind of adding what I feel like I'm struggling with. He added, I think, what he noticed I was struggling with, and then you kind of like mesh those together focused a lot on nutrition or not nutrition, hydration. And then also we went on a grocery tour on our like second or third meeting
Mhm.
to not only help me figure out like what to buy and what that actually looks like, but to be able to read labels. I don't think at that time I could even read labels or knew what any of it meant. Like I saw fat on there, but I didn't know a difference between the different kinds of fats, or I saw, oh, it has vitamins, but then I'm not looking at sodium, or I'm
Right.
seeing so many carbs, but I'm like, oh, that's too many carbs, even though at that point I didn't know I needed a lot of carbs. I'm obviously running 5 days a week at soccer practice. So I think hydration was the biggest thing we talked about. And then I think I told you that I can't eat after I just work out, which is such a load of like crap because now I'm like foaming at the mouth to eat after I work out.
Yes.
And now I've trained not only like my mind but my body to want to eat after I work out or within, a 30-minute hour window of working out. So I think it was you just approached it. I remember being so comfortable with you. You I wasn't scared. I was self-aware. I knew that I needed these things. And you approached it in a way that, like, wasn't ever scary. You were just, like, a matter of fact, but also you didn't make me feel silly for having these thoughts, and I remember I said something about prom, and you just, like you said, like, one thing, I don't even remember the exact phrase, but you were like, "That's so silly," or something that, like, just kind of, like, made me think like, okay, maybe I need to like wake up from this dream for a second because here I am, like I'm about to go play, Division 1 college soccer and I'm worried about fitting into my prom dress. Like that
Mm,
is so stupid when you look back on it. So
yeah.
I don't remember what it is you said, but I think about that sometimes. I'm like, yeah, never ever again. So
Yeah, and it's hard when you're in the thick of it to like you
for
can only
sure.
see here and now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many things like for myself where I look back and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I even was worried about that." Like I can remember when I was in middle school and I was worried about looking fat next to my best friend who was just tiny, and
Yes.
I can look back at those pictures at that time and I had legitimate six-pack abs and I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah. I
So,
know.
yeah. Okay, now can you describe what are some of like the main changes that you made to your diet and how those impacted your performance as a result of doing these sessions?
Yeah, so back to the hydration. I know like hydration tablets became a huge part of my day to day, even on off days or recovery days or slow days or days before games. I was always taking something for nutrition. So I think noon tablets were like the first thing that I started doing. And then obviously they've come out with like a million things since then. But back then, like noon was it was kind of like the go to in that world or what you introduced me to. Um, so staying hydrated. What I do now is like a lot of like BCAAs, like things in that world, like obviously liquid IVs to an extent, or something like a liquid IV. So that was something back then that I never did. It was just water and then like of course sugary Gatorade. That was the only two options that I ever had or did. So introducing that, like putting something in my water, and then obviously when I got to college, they would make us these awful electrolyte drinks and hand them to us, and we were forced to drink
Mhm.
them. And they were homemade by like one of our coaches, and it was disgusting, but you drank it because you knew you needed to, and you would,
Right.
sweat out a couple pounds out of 3 hour practice. So, um, I would say those for hydration, and then you just were really taking it slow with me. I just really needed to like up my calories. So I think I ran out of ideas and things to eat, but while I didn't know how to like keep it healthy. So a thing, or I think one of the first things we talked about was like how to build a plate. It wasn't just like a fruit or a vegetable. It was a fruit, a vegetable, a carb, a protein. It was the fact that it was like all of those make a meal. And then if I wanted to snack, then a fruit or a veg is fine for a snack. But I was like snacking for meals. So my like snacks were my breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
And I think more I realized that I needed more energy, the more I could like frame it like that, then the hungrier I got essentially. So framing or like knowing how to make a plate and then those hydration tablets, I think were the
Yeah.
two main things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's crazy how your mind plays so much into this. It's
Yeah.
like you said, the more that you realize, okay, I need to eat, the hungrier you got, but it's like your mind can make you believe whatever you want to believe for sure.
For sure. And that age, I mean, I think that's the same age I started birth control. That's the same
Hmm.
age I'm like going through all these changes and my hormones are just going haywire.
Yep.
And then on top of that, I'm not feeding them. So I'm like starving and I'm thirsty and my hormones are crazy. And I'm just like, what is going on? And you just don't know how to regulate your
Yes.
body to even eat. You don't even know how to like listen to.
Oh,
Of course, I knew that was going to happen.
it's okay.
You don't even know how to listen to your body to know when you're hungry.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% can relate back to that when I was that age for sure.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel like your new nutrition plan impacted your overall athletic performance when you were in college?
So I definitely needed to put on a little bit of weight in terms of muscle because I did feel myself lose some of my strength. And
Hmm.
I was so focused on my weakness, which was not being as fast as maybe some other girls my age. I made my strength also kind of a weakness. So it was a lose lose. And I don't think I realized that until I think I got to school. At that point, I'd probably only put on maybe like 10, 15 pounds. It wasn't a lot. But I was forced to not forced to eat, but we had team breakfast, team lunch, team dinner, 3-hour practice, a hour and a half lift. Like it was so structured. I had no other choice. And if my team was feeding me, I'm not going to not eat because if I can get a free meal and not have to make something in my dorm room, absolutely.
Right.
It actually helped me to have so much structure. I've always been someone who does better when I have a schedule. I think because I was an athlete, am an athlete, still have that mentality. So to go into college, I needed to gain a little bit of weight before I got there. And then once I got there, it almost the first semester I think was fine, but then you get into spring season and that's where you're kind of off a little bit. And that's when you're having a lot of like more cardio based practices because you can't touch a ball per NCAA rules, so many hours a week and you're doing a lot of indoor. Um, and I think at that point, girls reverted back because we weren't in the thick of our sport. They reverted back to losing weight again. So it was almost like during the season was a bulk. So I still had that healthy mentality from you that I had learned. But then spring came along and summer's coming up and spring break and all those huge things that
Hmm.
college people hype up. And I felt like I fell back into like old habits at that point again.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. So, and then how do you feel like nutrition um impacted your mental health and I guess your mental approach to sports? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. I think like I said earlier, I was always self-aware that I needed at the end of the day I needed to be eating more. I needed to be fueling my body more, hydrating more. But I think to a certain extent, for me and my experience, it was a choice. I think for me, I allowed myself to go there. And now, 10 years later, I just don't allow myself to do that anymore. If
Mhm.
I need to eat and I don't feel like I compare it to working out, right? Like I tell my members all the time, working out now, yes, everything has a balance to it, right? But for me, I have to make myself work out. That every day I know I'll feel better. Same thing with eating. If I can't get it in food form, have a protein shake,
Right.
have a smoothie, have something. You can pack a smoothie with so much stuff and just drink it and sit there. And yeah, shouldn't be the day to day, but one day off, I'm not feeling great and I just need to get in the calories and the protein for sure. But I think to a certain extent at this age, now that I can regulate my hormones, it is to a certain extent a choice. So I just, over the past 10 years, I've been learning um to force myself. I mean, we get up every day, right? We force
Mhm.
ourselves to go to work. We force ourselves to be grateful and happy, and we force ourselves to take the dogs on a walk, and we're constantly like forcing ourselves to do things that we don't want to do, and sometimes eating is a choice. And at the end of the day, I'm thankful I have the means to be able to walk to the grocery store. I have 4 grocery stores within a mile radius of me. I can take my car. I'm thankful that I have the means to do that. I'm thankful I have the means to pay for groceries. I just think rewiring your brain in a sense of like humbleness, like some people
Mhm.
can't eat and they want to. So
Yes.
I think it's been 10 years of just learning to do it. And like that's just kind of what life is about at this point, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That makes complete sense. And I actually appreciate that you even say that because it is very much true. So, do you feel like you had a good support system while you were going through all this? It sounds like yes, with your parents.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said earlier, my mom was always school and my dad was always soccer. I think this was a point where you couldn't break it into a category, right? Like this affected my school as well as
Right.
soccer. I was not only tired at practice, I was tired in class. I was tired at home. I was irritable. I was becoming obsessed with like the closing of the rings and whatever, measurement I had at the time. I don't think I had an Apple Watch, maybe a Garmin or something. Um, so it was funny, like my parents always liked to divide and conquer and like put things of my life in categories, but when you have something that meshes into both, they honestly did a really good job of handling it. And then I would say friends maybe 10 years ago probably at sometimes made it worse, but they didn't know any better, just like I didn't know any better. At this point in my life, I'm surrounding myself with people I meet at the gym. They're people I used to work with at the gym, other personal trainers. I've met some of my best friends, people who are going to be bridesmaids in my wedding in the past 3 years because of the gym. So I think just learning who you are and then choosing people who also have like similar goals to you. And now when I'm running with one of my best friends, we're always like, we always keep each other on track. She went through something similar when she was a freshman in college, so a little bit later than me, but we always are like checking each other and checking in. And I think back then it was my parents who kept me afloat, but now that I'm kind of away from home, it's definitely my girlfriends who keep me afloat.
Yeah. And I think that is so important because I think a lot of people, especially when they're struggling with things, and if they're in a group of people that are kind of fueling that fire, it's hard to see and also just let go of that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's if you don't want to be in that situation, like the best thing to do is to change your situation and change who you're hanging out with and like be with people that are actually going to put good things in your life. It's like the same thing with social media. If you're constantly pulling up Instagram and it's like, oh, well, look at my six pack abs, and look at how good I look, and it's like that's constantly what you're bombarded with, and like of course you're going to feel horrible about yourself. And
100%.
yeah, but it's so hard to get yourself out of that negative group and into a good group when you're in the middle of it. But it's, I think, so important to see that, and that to see the importance of doing that for sure.
For sure. And I think when you're at that age, like for anyone listening, if you're in college and you're on a team and you have people like that, it's not necessarily a choice, right? Like those are your friends. Those are the people you have to get along with. I mean, you are doing everything with these girls. You're on a bus with these girls or guys. If it's a guy going through this, they often have similar feelings and
Yeah.
and go through similar things. If you're on a team in general, you're with these people, breakfast, lunch, dinner, lift, practice, you're probably living with them. You're on a bus for 8, 10 hours, you're in a hotel with them. Like there's no escaping it. And even if you don't play sports, you're still in a dorm room, you're eating at a calf, you're still surrounded by people. So at that age, it's so hard to surround yourself with people that you are choosing, which is why when you get out of that, it's so important to like give yourself some space and time and grace to figure out what you want and your goals. And then you can start forming relationships that you are actually choosing, not who your, coach chose because you're on a team, not who your parents chose, not what your circumstances chose for you. And I don't think I learned that until like years out of college.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, is there any advice that you would give to other athletes that are struggling, who are considering working with a sports nutritionist?
I would say it can't hurt. It's
Yeah.
never well, if you find the wrong one maybe, but if you go to Kristen, it won't hurt. So
Yeah.
I'll phrase it like that. If you go to Kristen specifically, you're not gonna leave knowing less. You're not gonna leave being worse than you were before. I You can always learn something from someone, and I feel like this is something that's so universal. I feel like if you just speak up and say something, even in a joking manner, chances are someone's going to hear it and someone's going to have the exact same thoughts, exact same feelings. Don't be
Right.
afraid to say that you're struggling. Don't be afraid to go to your parents, or if it's not your parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, friends, random person or influencer, like if there's a nutritionist that you follow on Instagram and you've always followed them, poke into their DMs. Like no harm, no foul. If they don't
Hmm.
respond, then your secret's safe.
Right.
I just think that a lot of people go through this, no matter the age, no matter the gender. So speaking up, and maybe you have no idea and you can't speak up. But then when someone comes to you, like my dad did, don't immediately be defensive. Like definitely be open to hearing what they have to say. Hopefully they're coming from a place where they just want what's best for you and care about you. So not being defensive, being really open-minded when it comes to things like that, because people can be really defensive about what they eat and what they put in their body because it is personal. Like that, that's a choice you make several
Hmm.
times a day, every single day. So don't be defensive, and like most people just want what's best for you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So, tell us, where do you work? How can we find you if anybody is looking for a personal trainer in your area?
Yeah, so I work at ISI, which stands for Iron Sharpens Iron. They're a little bit of a chain. They're growing. They're not as big as F45 or Orange Theory, anything like that, but they started in Myrtle Beach, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a hit. It's more athletic based training. So a lot of my former athletes, like myself, love the fact that we're a little bit slower than a natural hit. So we are more just athletic style. So a little bit more strength-based. But there's several locations in Charlotte. So there's one in Dilworth, and then I work at the one in Elizabeth, which is in the Plaza Midwood area. So ISI Elizabeth is our social media, and then my social media is _ Amanda Morse, and that's where I work. So it's really fun.
Awesome.
They're about 50-minute sessions, and I coach pretty much every day and on the weekends. So you can
Yeah.
find our sessions on MindBody, and we're on ClassPass.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually really like that those sessions are more athletic based and more weight training versus doing just like an hour of hit, because those are like killer, and they're not, honestly, not good for a lot of people.
I know, like, we have a lot of ex-burn boot camp girlies that come over because they've got plantar fasciitis or they've got
Yep.
knee injuries, knee surgeries, because all they do is jump on that ledge. And that may work for some people, but a lot of my ex-athletes, they're tired. We've got old bodies. The
Mm-hmm.
sport has aged us by years. So we're, 3, 4 surgeries in, and we just can't jump anymore. I mean, I don't think I'll ever do a box jump ever again in my life if I don't have to. I've got scars down my shins from wooden boxes.
Oh,
So like step ups till the day I die.
yes.
But yeah, we're a little bit slower on Sundays. Obviously we have core cardio, but it's 1 day a week. And it's on the weekend. So a lot of people don't even get to it anyways. But I love a slower, heavier workout.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and
Of
sharing your experience.
course.
Really, really appreciate it, and I enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you so much. It was nice to catch up. I can't believe it's literally been 10
Oh,
years.
yeah, same.
That's insane.
Yes,
So thank you so much. This has
you're
been
welcome.
nice.
Hey friend, if this podcast inspired you, encouraged you, or changed you, I would love for you to leave me a review and share it with a girlfriend who will find it helpful or inspiring. That is the best way you can thank me and help me share my knowledge so I can help more people just like you. I'm so thankful that you spent this time with me today, and I'd love to connect with you. Join my Facebook group, Female Sports Nutrition, or send me a DM on Instagram, or hop on over to my website, elitenutritionperformance.com. I'll see you back here next week.